Hey everyone, my name's Tim. I'm the product manager for Examine here at Magnet. My team's been working super hard these past few months to bring our latest and greatest product feature, animated maps. So let's dive right in. All right, as we click in, we're going to get our traditional artifact view here. And nothing looks too different, but something will look different once you go up here to our column view, and let's drop down and see what it is. You'll notice here now we've got our route view, which I'm super excited to show you about. So let's take a look. So since it's our first time here, you're going to get our introducing routes wizard. And this is just going to give you a little bit of information with a link to find out more about how the routes work. So let's click through. Now that we've gotten through the splash screen, you'll notice that we're here in our route wizard. It's just a short 4-step process that you're going to select an evidence source for. You're going to select which artifacts you want to map, the date and time range that you're looking to find, and the route distance and time intervals between artifacts. So since we're on the evidence sources page, you can see that I have this one source selected. If you only have one source, it's going to be selected by default. And you'll notice down here that we've populated this first row. And so let's move on to the next piece. So now that we're on the first page, let's look at evidence sources. You can see that one is already checked. If you only load a single evidence source, it will be checked by default, and it'll automatically populate this box down here. So let's move on to artifacts. Click Next. Each one of the applications that includes geolocation data as well as a UTC date and timestamp will be able to be mapped using our Routes app. And here is a list. It is not comprehensive, but it is a list of available artifacts that we can choose from and map those accordingly. So here's step 2, artifact selection. Any supported app that captures both geolocation data and a UTC timestamp can be plotted using animated maps. You can see here a list of artifacts that include those fragments. This list is populated based on the evidence sources you load. The more supported apps the device contains, the more possible artifacts we can route. You'll notice that I've already got cache locations checked by default, but let's go ahead and add location visits as well. Now that we have those set, let's move to the next step. Step 3 is our date and time filter. I know this will be an important step in order to quickly find the event in question. You can see I've already adjusted mine, so let's move to step 4. Step 4 is our distance and time setting. It's important to note that it's the distance and time between routes. So when we're determining what points link for a route, we look at the first point in time, and then we look at the second one in time. In this scenario, if they're within 600 feet and 5 minutes of one another, they're linked as a route, then we go to the next point. When they eventually find a point that's 601 feet or 5+ minutes away, we consider that the start of another route. So now that we have these entered, let's calculate and see how many we get. Here you can see I've got 9 specific routes. Now that we have all of these loaded, how about we go and generate them? As you can see here on the left column, I've got all 9 of my routes, and the very first route is checked by default. And you can see here on the map that it's just showing those 9 points. I don't think that's the one we're looking for, so let's deselect that. Scroll down until we see one that is really rich and has a lot of different points. So it looks like here we have 1,189 points in Route 9, so let's start there. I'm going to select that route, and you'll notice here in the lower pane is a list of all the artifact fragments that make up this route, all 1,189. So let's click further into the map and see what it'll show us. Now that we're zoomed in, you can see that we obviously have a route here, and these are all the different breadcrumbs that have been dropped based off of all of our settings. So this looks like a pretty good route, and it's easily manipulated. We can zoom in and check out all the way down to each individual point. One thing I like here is when you click on the individual point, it actually shows you that actual fragment. You can view some details about it in the pane that'll open, or you can add tags and comments. Let's go ahead and close the details pane, give us a little bit more real estate in this map. So we have our route here. I think I'm going to go ahead and add a second one just so I can demonstrate that. So let's add Route 8. We're going to click back in, and it still looks like the same route, but what we've noticed here, as it did add Route 8 and Route 9, we call these our beep bars. For every breadcrumb that your phone drops or your app drops, we're going to give you one of these dots along this line. That way, you can add up to 5 routes and animate them all at the same time. In this instance, it looks like the first route ended right before the second route. And we know that because of our distance time interval, that's why they were separated. So let's go ahead. We've got our play button, our record button, and then we have 3 speed options. And like I said, any of the routes that are selected, we list all of those artifact fragments here below. What I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to play our route. So as soon as you hit play, you'll notice that because we have 2 routes, we have 2 pins. But I think it's moving a little bit slow. So how about we speed it up a little? So we click down, sped it up to 10x, and we see that we're starting to get some movement here. So as this route continues, once it gets to the end here, the second route will start. So let's stop right here. We think we found something that's important and we want to document it. So let's center this on our map. When we hit record, what's going to happen is you're going to get a countdown and a red box is going to appear around your map. Anything that happens inside of that red box, including all of your mouse movements, zooming, as well as clicking on any of the individual points, that will also show up on your video. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing we're going to get once we hit the record button is just a little informational pop-up. And of course, if you don't want it to bug you again, you can always set that. So let's click OK, and it's going to start the recording. So now that we're recording, let's go ahead and start that route again. As you can see, we take off, we get to the blue point, and now we're on the blue route. This route's going to animate its way all the way to its conclusion. And like I said, we can zoom in, we can zoom out, and if it's moving too fast for us, we can certainly slow it down, as you can see here. And like I said, if you need to see something a little more specific, you can always click in on each individual point, add tags and comments as you go. And when you're ready to finalize your video, you click stop. And we'd like to export. All right, our export's done. But before we go and take a look, I just want to remind you that if at any time you feel like you've got too many routes or you're just a little bit overloaded, you can always come up to the right corner and go back to your route wizard or adjust your distance and time intervals. All right, let's take a look. And here's our route. A perfect visual representation to drive home, no pun intended, the movements of your suspects or victim in your case. And so that's animated maps. I really appreciate your time and hope this new feature helps you continue to unlock the truth and protect the innocent. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback on this feature or any of our products here at Magnet. Have a good night.